All right, so today we're going to look at Chapter 2, kind of finish up reviewing some of the basics that we're going to be using all year long. All right, so something we want to be able to do is determine whether or not a number is bigger or smaller than another number. So if you're given two numbers and I say, which one's bigger, you want to know how to do that. How could you look at a number line and tell that? If you had two numbers on a number line, how do you know which one is bigger? Kind of depends on which direction, right? Sam?
Because one's more positive towards the right and one's more negative towards the left.
Yeah, it all has to do with whether it's towards the left or towards the right. Right? So if a number is to the left of another number, okay, more towards the negatives, then it's smaller. Okay, so if a number is to the left on the number line, that means smaller. So for example, if I mark a number in red, number in green, the number in red is smaller. Why? Because it's to the left. -6 is smaller than 0. If a number is to the right of another number, then it's larger. Right, so if I mark one more spot, the number in blue, okay, number 3, it's larger than the one in green because it's to the right of it. 3 is bigger than 0. Any question on that? So it's just kind of a simple way to visualize in your head if a number is bigger or smaller than another number. What kind of numbers could this get a little tricky with? Numbers like -6, 0, 1, 2, 3. Those are easy numbers to work with, but where could this get a little tricky? If I started giving you what kind of numbers? Fractions.
Decimals.
Yeah, decimals and fractions, sometimes those get a little tricky, right? So if I said like the number 5/3, one thing you might want to do is on your calculator, take 5, divide by 3, and figure out what it is as a decimal. All right? So then we say, 5/3. That's about 1.6, 1.7. Then we could say, it's about, maybe right about there. That's 5/3. All right? So if you have to work with fractions, our advice is probably use a calculator, change it to a decimal. All right, so let's try a couple of these. So you're going to use the sign less than or greater than. Right? We're comparing -5 and -2. Is -5 greater than -2? Or is -5 less than -2? Which one? Justin?
Less than?
Yeah, it's less than. Perfect. -5 is less than -2 because it's to the left. Okay, any questions on that? All right, now this one is a fraction, but it's not too bad as a decimal. You can almost change that in your head. What's 4.5 as a decimal?
4.5.
4.5. All right, how about, is it, let's see, Callan? Did I say it right? Callan? What should go in here? Is 4.5 greater than -6 or less than -6? Yeah, it's greater. Yeah. Any questions on that? All right, next one. Okay, these numbers are close. -5.3, -5.4. How about Zach? What do you think? You're going to put a greater than or less than? Less than. How many people agree with less than? Does anybody think greater than? Okay, greater than? Yeah, if we graph it, let's kind of space it out on the number line. Okay, put 0 over here. And we've got, let's see. Let's fill in a couple more. Okay, negative 5.3, that's probably about right here. Negative 5.4, let's do it in a different color. Negative 5.4 is a little bit more towards the negative side. Okay, it's to the left of it. Right? So in this case, negative 5.3 is bigger than negative 5.4. Because the black one is to the right of the red one. Any question on that?
Because with that greater than and less than, always have the sign opening towards what's greater. That's how it works, right? Have it opening towards whatever's greater. Now some people have a hard time with that.
All right, so next thing is opposites. Okay, one way you can, if you kind of try to tie this into a number line, numbers are opposites if they are the same distance from 0. Think about if you're at 0, positive 3, negative 3. They're each 3 units away from 0. They just go in different directions. Right? And Mr. Wright, they already have that written down?
No.
Yes.
Yeah, you guys go ahead.
Oh, they do? Okay, very easy. If we have a number and you want to make it its opposite, we just put a dash in front of it.
And guys, this will be important like for the rest of the year because when we're solving equations, you have to start moving stuff around on either side of the equal sign. You're gonna have to make things opposite, cancel them out. That's why we put it down.
And one thing you want to be careful of when you type something in on a calculator, there's 2 buttons that look like dashes. Okay, I'll show you on this one. You guys will be using a little simpler one. But you have a minus sign and you have a negative sign. Does everyone know the difference between the two? So this one is if I want to actually do subtraction. 9 minus 6. Watch what happens if I try to use the little dash to do subtraction. Okay, it's not going to like that. It's going to give me an error. All right, so when you type it in on your calculator, again, yours will look a little different, but it still has both of these buttons. We've got to make sure we use the right one for subtraction and for a negative. Let's try to simplify these expressions. How do you read this first one? Letter A. How would you pronounce what that says? You don't even have to simplify it yet. Just read exactly what's on the board. Yeah, Gabe? I think it's on your sheet too, right, Mr. Wright?
No, I'm gonna write this one.
Okay, you're going to write this one in. So maybe I'll make it a little bigger. You can't see it. Yeah, how would you pronounce, like if I just said read exactly what's right there, how do you pronounce that? Close. Want to help him out? I just want to make sure we know how to read what's up there. Yeah.
Negative 1 times negative 1/2.
Yeah, you could say it that way. That's fine. You could just say negative 1/2. Sometimes when I have 2 negatives in a row, I say it like this. The opposite of negative 1/2. And that makes more sense to me if I think, what's the opposite of negative 1/2? What is that? The opposite of negative 1/2. Positive 1/2. Or you could say negative 1/2. Some people say it that way too. Same thing. Okay, how about this one? How about Brian? How do you read that one? Negative 0. What is negative 0? What does that really just come out to? Yeah, Maria? Yeah, it's just 0. 0 is the only number that it's its own opposite. It's the only one. Negative 0, positive 0, same thing. Right, and this one. What would we do first in that one? That kind of goes back to what we learned on Friday. How about Alex? What would we do first there?
7.8 minus 3.2.
Yeah. So you'd start with 7.8 minus 3.2. This negative, what's going to happen to that?
Not sure.
Come on, what are we going to do with that negative? Yeah, go ahead, Logan.
Add it on to the end after you get, what, 7.8 minus 3.2 equals?
Yeah, we're gonna put it on at the. We're just gonna put it right in the beginning. Yeah, we're just gonna copy it right down in the beginning. So first thing I might do is put it down right now. Right? And now, if you know 7.8 minus 3.2, just write it down. If not, you can always use your calculator, and you get 4.6. So we've got negative 4.6. All right, so Mr. Roy's going to come up. He's going to go over some of the rules for adding and subtracting positives and negatives. Okay.
Guys, so this stuff's gonna show up for the rest of the year. All right? So like we talked about earlier, like the sign to the left is gonna go with that number. All right? It belongs with it. Like Sam said earlier, if there's no sign, just assume that it's positive. All right? If you don't feel confident with your positives and your negatives when you're combining them, use your calculator. Okay? So, if they have the same sign, if you had something like, I think we had one in the warm-up, it was like negative 7 minus 3. So, I have this, and I have that, because the sign's to the left. All right? So, we're going to combine these two. We're going to combine these two numbers. All right? It means just going to bunch them together. So, when I do 7 and 3, Dad, what do I get?
You combined it?
Yeah.
You get 10.
10, right? So right now, I'm just going to put equals 10, right? So I want to combine the numbers, which I just did, and then keep the sign with both numbers in your answer. So what sign, Caitlin, is with both of my numbers? The negative, right? The negative here, the negative there. So all I'm going to do is just bring it over, okay? So I'm going to keep the sign, which is negative, all right? And it's going to combine the two numbers. Same thing if I had two positive. If I had 3 plus 5, all right? Again, just because there's no sign here, it's still going to be positive, even though there's no sign. Even though there's no sign here, it's still positive, all right? I'm going to combine my two numbers. 3 and 5 gives me what? 8. And then I don't have to put positive, all right? We might get in situations where we have a long problem, and we might have to put the positive sign in there. But these rules are real important. So if it's the same sign, combine the numbers, all right? Even if it's two negatives, add them together. Or however you think of it, bunch them together, whatever, group them together, and then put your sign. So what I'll do is sometimes, especially with the second rule we're going to talk about, I usually put my sign first so I don't make a mistake. Because then you go through the whole problem and do all this work, and one tiny little mistake with your signs is going to totally screw you up. And you won't get credit. You'll lose some credit. So we got this, everybody has this? Combine everything? Okay, good. Next, if there's different signs, so let's say we had, I'm just going to erase this. We're going to get some examples after this. Let's say I had the same kind of thing, negative 3, positive 5. All right? I'm going to take the sign of the larger number in my answer. All right? So Victor, what's the larger number? Think about it, I know this screws people up sometime. Ignore the signs. All right? Ignore the signs. Don't worry about it being negative and positive right now. Ignore that. So you might want to put that. Ignore signs. So we do that first step, just ignore the signs. All right, we're going to ignore them. So like Victor just said, 5. Again, we're not negative 3, negative 5, positive 5. Ignore that. Just the number itself. 5 is bigger than 3. Okay? So the rule says, Victor, take the sign of the larger number in your answer. Is my answer going to be positive or is it going to be negative? Do I have to put the positive sign? No. I could, but I don't have to. All right? So what I like to do, and this might screw some people up, when I do that, so if I have something like this, the negatives first, I read it backwards because it makes more sense. Rather than negative 5, negative 3 plus 5, I'll read it backwards. I'll say 5 minus 3. Ryan, when I do that, what do I get? When I do 5 minus 3?
Positive 2.
Positive 2. There you go. Now if I did the opposite, let's say I had negative 8 and a positive, I don't know, 2. Corey, in that problem, which again, ignoring the signs to start, which number is bigger? Which number is bigger? Ignore the signs, ignore the negative and the positive. Just the numbers themselves, 8's bigger, right? What's the sign with 8? Negative, right? So what does that mean? What's the rule? Take the sign. And so what I usually do is put my negative sign so I don't forget. Okay? And then I have 8 minus 2. So I already took care of my negative sign. It's already there. 8 minus 2. Michaela, what do you think? 8 minus 2. Yep. No, just tell me what 8 minus 2 is. I already put down my negative sign, so that's all taken care of. Just tell me what 8 minus 2 is. 6. I already got my negative sign there. It follows my rule, right? If I'm ignoring the signs at the beginning, 8's bigger than 2. It's negative, put my negative sign, and just do the simple math. Right? 8 minus 6. So, these ones, right? Let's call this, you don't have to put this on your sheet, but I'm just going to put it down and go over it. All right? Ariana, when I do this one, example 3A, what rule am I going to follow? Rule 1 or rule 2? Rule 1, right? So because I have, even though there's this makes it even easier because there's a positive sign there already. So it's telling me to do what with the numbers? What am I going to do? What's the rule say, Ariana? So when I do this, is my answer going to be positive or negative? Combine the numbers and keep the sign with both numbers in your answer. So what's the sign with both numbers? Negative, right? So I know my answer is going to be negative. What do I do with, now because I have my sign there, what do I do with 12 and 19?
Add them.
Add them together, right, Sam? So what am I going to get?
31.
31. Again, guys, if you're not sure on that one, just use a calculator. You can always, if you're not sure about adding and subtracting positives and negatives, you can use a calculator too. All right, like Mr. Hager just showed you guys a really good tip earlier about making sure you put your negatives in there. Yeah, so negative 31. Same sign. I want to keep the sign, add the numbers together. It shows up all year long, guys. That's why I'm spending so much time on it. Next one. Justin. This next one. I get negative 16 plus 12. Which rule? Rule 1 or rule 2? What do you think? Rule 2, okay. Answer got to be positive or negative? Negative. Tell me why.
Because the bigger number is 16.
16, right? Ignore the signs. 16 is bigger than 12, right? So now I can just read it. 16 minus 12, because I already have my sign there. 16 minus 12 is what? 4. Right? Now I have this one. I have 3. This one I have 3 terms. Actually, I have 4 terms in this one. Anybody have a way that they might want to attack this one? What do you think, Sam?
I did 8 plus a negative 2.
Okay, you did 8 plus a negative 2, so what'd you get?
I got 6.
6? Okay, positive, right? How come?
Because 8's bigger
8's bigger than 2, right? So I'm gonna put 6. What I do, I cross it out so I know I used it, even that sign, okay?
And then I did 4 plus the negative 6, and I got negative 2.
Right, because 6 is bigger than 4. Make sure you bring that negative sign down. Final answer, Sam?
4.
4. What I might have done, and maybe other people didn't, Sam, you can do this any way you want. It doesn't really matter. All right? What I might have done was, I might have done 8 and positive 4, and I might have done negative 2 and negative 6. So I'm working with the same signs. All right? You'll get the same thing. All right? Again, this is a little bit different because there's 4 terms. All right? So guys, these rules right here, very important because they show up all year long. Even when we get into like tomorrow, we start doing equations. Even we do stuff in May, April, this stuff always shows up. It's always there. Right? So you really need to be, really need to be sure about that stuff. And that's why we're spending so much time on it. Mr. Hager?
All right, so let's try going back to an evaluate. Okay, we talked about what that means. This time, the only difference from last time is we got a positive and a negative. Last time we always had positives. Okay, now we know about negatives. Okay, how about Alex? What's my first step? Anytime I have to evaluate.
Plug in the numbers.
Good. Plug in the numbers. What do you plug in for x in this case?
5.
5, and for y?
Negative 8.
Negative 8. And what I'm going to do so it doesn't look confusing is I'm going to put it in parentheses. Otherwise, it would look like this. That looks a little confusing. All right, so I just put parentheses around the negative. Okay, and anyone tell me what that's going to simplify to? Keep in mind different signs here. One's positive, one's negative. Ryan?
Negative 3.
Perfect, negative 3. Good. All right, so a couple more simplify. This one I don't think we talked about yet, have we, Mr. Roy?
No.
Okay. Does anybody know what happens there? This should be a review. When you subtract a negative, what happens there? It's like you get 2 negatives in a row. What's the rule with that? Yeah, Caitlin? Exactly, it becomes a positive.
Yep.
So instead of saying 6 minus negative 9, it's going to become 6 plus 9. Perfect. Okay, so anytime you subtract a negative, it becomes a positive. And 6 plus 9, Logan, what does that come out to?
6 plus 9.
15. Nice job.
So you can say whenever there's 2 negatives in a row, you can make them positive when they're side by side.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Or like Sam said earlier, Mr. Hager, if you wanted to, outside that parenthesis, you could put a 1 and 2, right? That makes sense? You put the number 1 next to the negative sign.
Put a 1.
Yeah. I know some people, especially when we're going to get to distributing negatives later on, right? Like the last thing we do today. But that's another good way to, like, I know Sam said that earlier. If you want to put a negative next to that 1, you can do that too.
All right, next one. It's all addition and subtraction. So PEMDAS says we just do that in order from left to right. So we just, as we see it, we just do it. Okay, so first thing is 6 take away 9. Yeah, Sam?
Negative 3.
Negative 3. Now what I do, so I don't make a mistake, I'm just going to go one step at a time, copy the rest down. So we'll just go very carefully through it. Okay, next 2 things. I've got a negative 3 plus 4.
1.
And give people a second just to think about it. How about Maria? What do you think that's going to be? Negative 3 plus 4.
Negative 7.
Well, if this was subtraction, I agree with you. That would be negative 7. But in this case, you're adding. So it's like if you owed someone $3 and you paid them back 4, it's like you actually paid them back an extra
Oh, negative 1.
positive 1.
1, okay.
right? So positive 1. And now the last part, positive 1, take away 1. What does that leave me with? How about Ariana? That leaves me with 0. All right, I think for number 6, why don't we skip over that one, Mr. Roy?
Okay.
Okay? That's another evaluate. It's plugging in and more arithmetic. All right, so let's go to example 7. This one says the temperature rose from -3 to 16. That's a pretty cold day. If it's in Fahrenheit. So -3 to 16. What's the temperature change there? Right? And if you have to make a number line, put -3, put 16, and look at it. Yeah,
Are you subtracting?
exactly. I was going to ask that if we got stuck. What operation do you do anytime you want to find a change or a difference? Like if you got,
Yeah.
you're going to subtract. Like if you got let's say you got a 90 on a test, and the next time you got an 80, and you wanted to know what's the change, what's the difference in my score? You take 90 minus 80, it tells you 10. All right? So what do I subtract here? What minus what?
-3 minus 16. No, I think that's wrong.
Yeah, it's the other way, right? It's
Oh,
gonna,
16 minus a -3.
yeah, because think what's happening here. It's warming up, right? It's going from a negative to a positive, so the temperature is going to warm up. It's going to be a positive answer. So in this case, think of this as like, this is the starting temperature, -3, that's where it started. This is the ending temperature. Anytime you want to find the change in something, it's always end minus start. Or final minus initial, however it's worded. Okay? And what is that? Gage?
13?
19. Yep.
Sorry.
Remember the rule, was it, I think Caitlin told us, minus a minus becomes a plus. So it becomes 16 plus 3. So that's a change of 19 degrees. All right, so next part we're going to look at is multiplying. Okay, rules for multiplying and dividing are a little different than adding and subtracting. All right, there's basically four cases you can have. Do they have this whole chart, Mr. Roy, already?
They haven't tried, but they said to plug in the signs, Ms. David.
Okay. So these are the 4 cases. You can multiply a positive and a negative and a positive, which is really the same thing. 2 negatives or 2 positives. Okay, who can tell us what would happen in this first row? If you multiply a positive times a negative, what kind of number do you get? Positive times a negative, Ben?
Negative.
Negative?
Yeah.
Perfect. And a negative times a positive,
Same thing.
it's the same
Opposite
thing.
order.
That's still a negative. How about this one? I keep saying times. It could be a negative times a negative or a negative divided by a negative. Same rules. Yeah, is it Victor?
Yeah, positive.
Good.
Positive, good. And last one, this is the one most people usually, this you've worked with since first grade. What's positive times positive?
Positive.
Positive. All right, positive. Right, so those are the 4 cases you have when you multiply and divide.
Like Mr. Hager said, guys, that works for division 2. It's the same thing. It applies to both.
All right, so let's try to multiply these 2 numbers together. What might be a good first step here? I think we talked about this last week. We're multiplying a fraction, and we're multiplying a whole number. Yeah?
But you have to turn 20 into a fraction.
Yeah, and how would you turn 20 into a fraction? You can always put any number over what?
But multiply. I was gonna say by multiplying.
Multiply, we don't want to multiply yet.
Yeah, 4 times 20.
Yeah, we don't want to do 4 times 20. because that number is in the bottom, but if we do something, I think it'll make it clear which numbers get multiplied. Yeah, Alexis? Yeah, put it over 1. And then anytime you're multiplying fractions, the numbers in the top get multiplied together, and the numbers in the bottom get multiplied together. Now, if you want, you can reduce first. Mr. Roy, which way you want to do this? You want to reduce first or just multiply the way it is? You could do it either way. How many people just multiply the way it is? They just multiply the top, multiply the bottom, and then reduce at the end. A lot of people do it that way. Okay, let's do it that way. You got to reduce. You're either going to do it now or you're going to do it later. Okay? So we multiply straight across the top. Just use our calculator. 8 times 20. Okay, gives me 160. Okay, bottom, I think we can do this without a calculator. 4 times 1. 4. Last step, 160 divided by 4. That will reduce. If you're not sure, use your calculator. Or if we think we know it, we could just do it.
40.
Yeah, it's 40. Good job.
Guys, anybody, rather than putting that, that's not wrong, putting that 20 over 1, that's actually good to know because you're going to need to use that as the year goes on. Can anybody think of another way that Mr. Hager might have been able to do that? For example, A? What do you think, Ryan?
Well, couldn't you just simplify for 8 over 4? Which
What
is,
is, Ryan, can you say to me what that means, 8 over 4?
it means
What operation is that, Ryan?
division.
Exactly, right? So how would you say it? 8 what?
4 over 8. I mean 8 fourths.
What's the operation again? Division, right? So 8.
8
Say
divided
it.
by 4.
Exactly, right? And guys, and like Mr. Hager was showing you guys earlier, I think we had like 3, he had some kind of fraction when we were doing the stuff on the number line, and he divided it. Any fraction is really a division problem, all right? It's all division. So especially when you have a number on the top that's bigger than the number on the bottom, try to see if they can win to each other evenly. Most times they will, right? So you have a number on the top that's bigger than the number on the bottom, divide it. So like Ryan just said, we can do 8 divided by 4 will give me the 2, times the 20 will give me 4. Right, so that works too. Putting the 20 over 1, that also works. Either way, okay? Remember, that's a big thing to know, especially as we get going this year. Any fraction is really a division problem.
Does everyone see how much easier it is this way? Just taking 8 divided by 4, how much smaller your numbers are. You don't have to work with big numbers. So a lot of times there are easier ways to do things. And if we find them, that's great. All right. Okay, this one, we'll use our calculator. But first, I got a negative times a negative. So when I type that in, what kind of answer am I expecting on the calculator? Negative times a negative. Caitlin? Yeah, I'm expecting a positive. All right? So if I type it in and I get a negative, I probably type something in wrong. So let's just type it in. So there's negative 6.8 times, what is it, negative 5? Every calculator is a little bit different how you type it in. This one's kind of strange if you use this one. But on yours, if you type it in, you should get 34. And you don't need a plus there. Okay? We don't write things like that, plus 34. All right, next one. Negative 15 divided by negative 5. Corey, what kind of answer there? Positive or negative? Positive. Why? Yeah, it's a negative divided by a negative. That's it. And let's see, can we do that without a calculator? Negative 15 divided by negative 5. It's gonna be a nice answer. I think we can. Victor? 3. Good job. Okay, as we've said before, you can always use a calculator, but I think for that one we're okay. How about this one? Negative, looks like the negative's in the top. Negative 27 divided by 3. How about Callan? Can you just tell me what kind of answer? Positive or negative?
Negative.
Good. And now 27 divided by 3. How about Jamin?
Yeah.
Jamin? Yeah, what's 27 divided by 3?
7.
Not quite. 24 divided by 3 is 8.
So is it 9?
9. Yeah, 27 divided by 3. And we said earlier that it would be negative. Good. Okay, special cases. Okay, anytime,
Mr. Hager, they have this all written out on this sheet.
okay, so anytime you've got 0 involved with division, you have to be careful. Okay, let's look at the first case. 0 divided by any number. Okay, let's just try a couple. Okay, it says here it's always going to come out to 0. Take 0 divided by 8. 0. 0 divided by 5. 0. 0 divided by negative 3.2. 0. Okay? 0 divided by anything is always 0. Let's see what happens if we flip it. What's it called when you take a fraction and you flip it? Does anyone remember the name of that? I think we're going to talk about it in a second. Does anybody know what that's called? No? That's a reciprocal.
Oh.
How many people have heard that now that I said
Oh,
it?
yeah.
Remember that? Okay. So when you flip it, you get 0 in the bottom. Look what happens here. Something divided by 0, it says undefined. Let's try 5 divided by 0. Well, the calculator doesn't say undefined. It says cannot divide by 0. You're not allowed to. And there's a trick to remembering this one. Does anybody know the trick? All right. If you take a number and you divide by 0, what does it spell? No. All right. So a number divided by 0 spells no. That's how you can remember no, I can't do it. I can't take a number and divide by 0. That's how I remember it.
So that's one of your favorites.
Yeah,
I
it's,
love
like,
that.
it's a great one. All right, and then the last one, 0 divided by 0 is also undefined. Now, if any time you forget these, remember you always have your calculator. You can always type it in and check it. Right? This one says result is undefined. Can't do it. All right? So any questions on these 3 cases? Right, so just be careful when you have division with 0. Okay, the next part, I think you guys just need to fill in the blank. I already told you the answer. If you have a fraction and you flip it, basically take what's on the top and put it in the bottom. Take what's in the bottom, put it in the top. That's called the reciprocal. Reciprocal is just a fancy word for flip. Flip. And where we see reciprocal come up is when we have to divide 2 fractions. Okay, anybody already know how you do that? Like if I said to you to take 5/8 and divide it by a half. We're not going to actually do that one, but this is the kind of problem I'm talking about. Fraction divided by a fraction. Okay, if you do anything with carpentry or any of the trades here where you got to measure, you're definitely going to want to know how to work with your fractions. Yep,
We're going to do 5/8 times 2 over 1.
that's perfect. All right, so what Sam did is she kept the top fraction the same, and she took the fraction that was in the bottom, flipped it, and multiplied. That's perfect. Keep the top fraction the same, and multiply by the reciprocal of the bottom. You guys already have that written down?
Yes.
You do? Okay.
Mr. Hager, what if they're written like the examples there, like example 10? What if they're written like a cross? When there's no top and bottom?
So what we do here is, if it doesn't say top and bottom, you could also view it as left and right. Keep the left fraction the same and multiply by the reciprocal of the,
Or if you
Right.
do first and second, right?
or first and second. Yep. Some people, if you want to rewrite it so that it is one over the other, you could do that. I don't think that's really necessary. You could. Okay, so which fraction here, Sam, is going to stay the same? Good. 8 over 9. Now, when we divide fractions, we're going to change it to what operation? We're not going to use division. We're going to change it to, yeah? We're going to change it to multiplication. And Maria, what am I going to multiply by?
Negative 2/3. Oh, negative 3 over 2.
Right, we got to flip it. So it was good. She kept the negative. When you flip it, negative stays right where it is. And then when we multiply, we're just going to go straight across. Okay, just go straight across. 8 times negative 3 is negative 24. 9 times 2 is 18. Okay, and the last thing I can do is I can reduce that a little bit. Does anybody see what number goes into both 24 and 18? I heard 2. There's a couple even bigger. Logan?
There's 3.
3? Yep, you could do 3. Anything even bigger. 4. 4 doesn't go into 18. Yeah, Sam?
6.
6. Yeah, you can reduce the top and bottom both by 6. Ben, how many times does 6 go into 24?
4 times.
Good. And how many times does 6 go into 18?
3 times.
Perfect. Good job. Right, and the last 2 examples we're going to look at, you guys have already done some of this. The only difference is it's combining like terms, where now you have negatives. We've done it with all positives last week. Now we got some negatives. All right, first one says 6CD minus 9CD. What did we say about the letters? When you combine like terms, unless it comes out to 0, does anything happen to the letters?
No.
No. So first thing you want to do right away is just write down CD. We got to figure out what number is going to go in front. And from that, you're going to use the rules Mr. Roy showed you. 6 take away 9. Okay, Michaela, what's 6 take away 9?
Okay, which, if I was gonna talk about earlier, if I was gonna ignore those signs, right, ignore the negative, and it's not there right now, right? Which number is bigger? 9, right? And what's the sign with 9? Negative, right? So what does that mean about your answer? Is your answer gonna be positive or negative? Negative, right? Okay, so today he's going to put the negative. And now what I do is, I'll read it backwards from the bigger number. So 9, because it makes more, it's easy that way. 9 minus 6 is what? Three, right? So we already got a negative sign up there, so let's put the 3. That's it.
So negative 3, CD.
And some of you guys, when like Hager says like 6 minus 9, some of you guys are probably like, yep, negative 3. For other people, it's different. Do it, Mr. Hager, all of you, you're going to see guys, whatever works easier for you, whatever makes more sense. We're not going to say you have to do it this way, right? Whatever makes more sense to you is fine with us.
Okay, next one under example 11. Here, you might want to identify your like terms first. Some people put a little box around them. You can do it any way you want. Ryan, can you tell me, what are some like terms in this one?
7 and 4,
All right, and what sign goes with the 7? What's to the left of it?
negative,
Good. So I'm just going to put a box around that. And what about the 4? What's the sign on that?
and positive.
Positive. All right. And the other like terms, well, they're the things that don't have boxes. Got the negative x and the positive 6x. All right, so let's combine what's in green first. Let's combine those x's. Okay, how about Ryan? What do I get when I combine negative x with positive 6x? How much? 5x. Perfect. Some people like to put a 1 in front, so if you see something like this, some people throw a 1 in front, and that's perfectly fine. But you got it right away without it, so 5x. And the last part, negative 7 plus 4. Okay, we're adding numbers with opposite signs, so take the sign of the larger number. Okay, Alexis, what's the larger number here?
7.
Yeah, the 7. And what's the sign on the 7? It's a negative. Now we just subtract these two numbers, larger minus smaller. What's 7 minus 4? 3. And we already got the negative. We're good. 5x minus 3. Okay, so it's just a little combining like terms with negatives. Okay, example 12. Does that look familiar? What is this really? We've already done this. We just never did it with negatives. But we've already done it. Yeah, it's just distributive property again. Okay, this time it's distributive with negatives. Okay, how about Gabe? What am I distributing in the top one?
Can you make it larger?
Make it a little bigger. Yeah, so what are we distributing in that top one?
Negative 4.
Good. We're going to distribute that negative 4. Notice he said negative 4. It's the negative and the 4. Both of them. So we do negative 4 times 5. Yeah?
Negative 20x.
Good. So I was just going to start with the numbers. Negative 4 times 5 is negative 20. And we put the x on the end. Now remember, Mr. Roy said this earlier, you're multiplying. They don't have to be like terms. Not for multiplication. Different set of rules. Okay, and how about Zach? What's going to come on the end of that? Negative 20x. What's negative 4 times positive 7? Zach.
What was the question?
What's negative 4 times positive 7?
Negative 20.
I like the negative. That's good. Negative times positive is negative. But what's 4 times 7?
28.
28. Good. All right. And last problem, I think, right, Mr. Roy?
Last one?
Last one. Good. This one looks a little tricky. Is this distributive property? How many?
Yes.
You think it is? What are you distributing here?
Negative
Right. You're distributing a negative 1. Okay. Anytime you see a minus in front of parentheses, if you want, put in the 1 so it looks just like this. Now we can we're distributing the minus 1. How many people do that? They put in the 1 so they can see what they're distributing. How many people just do it the way it is? Yeah, that's
Just
fine.
imagine it.
Yeah, you just imagine it. We can do that from now on. That's fine. All right, so when we distribute it, 4x, that stays the same. What do you get when you distribute the negative to the 7, Victor? What negative 1 times 7? It's times, yep. It's a negative times a positive.
So would it be negative 7?
7, good. All right.
And then, do you want me to keep answering?
You want to keep going?
No, not really.
Okay. Anyone help him out? Finish it up. Good job. What's negative 1 times 5x? Or just distribute the negative to the 5x.
Negative 5x.
Negative 5x. Okay, good. Well, are we all set? Everyone like that answer?
No.
No? All right, can someone else tell me why Sam doesn't like it? It's just Monday, she's not happy about it? Some reason? Justin? Why is Sam unhappy with that? So you're happy with it, right? You're okay with it. Yeah?
You can combine the 4x and the 5x.
Yeah, we got some like terms. 4x, take away 5x. All right. So what do we get, Maria, when we combine those?
X. Well,
Careful, you got 4 and you're taking away 5. You're taking away even more than you have.
negative.
Negative x. Anything else?
Minus 7.
Minus 7.
Guys, if you put negative x there, you're not, negative 1x, you're not wrong, that's fine too.
All right, any questions on that? All right, so as I said at the beginning, okay, tomorrow, Mr. Roy and I, we're going to come around, we're going to check the homework. Okay, it's going to be a worksheet tonight. Okay, so make sure you complete that. It's going to be your first homework grade. Any paperwork you still need to sign, make sure you get that in because the deans are going to give you demerits if you don't. 3-ring binder, we're going to try to organize that by Friday. Remember, you come here for homeroom, but at 8:30, we got an assembly. Okay?